Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight there is breaking news just as we come on the air. The new video just now emerging tonight, appearing to show the ICU nurse in Minneapolis, Alex Preddy, in a struggle with federal agents 11 days before he was shot and killed. What that video then shows. Tonight there is also breaking news on the two federal officers who shot Alex Preddy days later. Matt Rivers on the scene for us. Also tonight, the alarming scene at a Minneapolis town hall. A man attacking a sitting member of Congress, spraying her with an unknown substance from a syringe. That man under arrest tonight. And President Trump suggesting afterward to our Rachel Scott that the Congresswoman did it to herself. Tonight, the new storm system, a potential nor'easter, the two tracks we're watching very closely, and the brutal cold from the northeast all the way south to Texas. Hundreds of thousands still without power and heat. Look at the linemen dangling from a helicopter trying to wear high voltage lines. Asking the murder wife and a husband arranged to cut house. Husband said on the stand today. Tonight, the Hall of Fame backlash. Head coach Bill Belichick snubbed on his first football Hall of Fame ballot. 6 Super Bowl victories with the Patriots, 8 in all. What Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, LeBron James are all saying tonight. And ESPN and what they've learned about the reasoning behind the decision tonight. The high-speed police chase through Los Angeles, suspects accused of loading a U-Haul with stolen property. Then another car they were in. We'll have the latest. A town on edge dangling a landslide, leaving a community in danger of falling over a cliff. News tonight about Bruce Willis, what his wife is now sharing. And America Strong tonight, take a close look at this snowplow right here, clearing the way on the highway for an ambulance right behind. What that plow driver did, you have to see this tonight. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News.
Wednesday night, 2 premiers trying to find common ground. We don't always agree on everything.
The tone was very civil in the meeting and borderline friendly.
What they accomplished on the eve of the First Ministers' meeting. Boosting Arctic security in the face of the U.S. president's unpredictability.
I see how critical Canada's North is to the defense of North America.
A First Nations school in Manitoba burned to the ground, what it means for hundreds of students in the remote community. Plus, surprise!
My hands are like shaking.
The poignant moments 2 Olympians learned they are named Canada's flag bearers.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Canada's premiers never show up for a meeting with the Prime Minister without a list of demands and grievances. On the eve of a First Minister's meeting, signs this one could be different. Prime Minister Mark Carney got together with 2 premiers who have vastly different views on building another pipeline to the West Coast. They emerged talking like neighbors. Alberta's Danielle Smith called the meeting productive, and BC's David Eby described it as borderline friendly. Manitoba's premier says he believes there is a true sense of unity among the premiers. Gillian Piper has our top story on the tone ahead of this First Minister's meeting.
Well, it's a pleasure to have this opportunity to sit down.
The Prime Minister trying to pitch a united front in the face of a divisive project.
These are two of the leaders bringing our economy together at this crucial time.
The premiers of Alberta and BC have been sparring for months, but it seems closed-door discussions with Mark Carney have brought down the temperature.
The tone was very civil in the meeting and borderline friendly.
Despite friendlier conversations, the premiers came out of that meeting with the same concerns and issues they walked in with.
I have a little bit more work to do to show that we have demonstrated that we've heard some of the concerns of the local communities, but I'm very positive that we're going to get that pipeline to the Northwest BC coast built.
We still don't know the route of this proposed pipeline, that there is no proponent, that there's no money for it.
But regardless of BC's objections, David Eby conceding there is not much he can do to stop a pipeline.
You know, I understand the Prime Minister and the Premier of Alberta are
President Trump says the administration will de-escalate in Minnesota after nice conversations with Governor Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Fry. But Fry pushed back following his meeting with border czar Tom Homan, hosting in part. I also made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws, and that we will remain focused on keeping our neighbors and streets safe. This as Democrat lawmakers threaten to shut down the government by the end of the week over DHS funding. National Review senior writer Noah Rothman joins us now. Great to see you this morning, Noah. Thank you for joining us. So just to step back, big picture here. You've talked a lot about this over the years, but I think it's important to remember what is going on here. You have federal agents in Minneapolis trying to enforce federal laws, and then you have Democrat politicians in Minneapolis and in Minnesota at large and in other places who are doing all they can to foment a situation
into putting accusing ICE of abducting children and using them as bait. Senator Tina Smith calling that pure evil. Again, it's the sort of thing that radicalizes. But there are also elements I'm sorry, continue.
No. I want to get to the politics, but I also want to ask you about this. The fact that you make a really important point about how these politicians are saying, oh, we're going to keep these videotapes to prosecute. Obviously there are protections for federal officers working in a state or a city. But that immunity in the hands of local politicians, I'm scared for these agents.
Well, I don't know what the plan would be for local prosecutors. There are certainly prosecutors who like to make a name for themselves with these flashy campaigns. Mayor Fry's position that he's not going to be able to enforce or will not enforce federal law, at least immigration law, that seems pretty untenable, at least if we look at 2020 and his belated and welcome efforts to police those protests eventually. The activist class doesn't make this careful distinction between the enforcement of federal and state law and the enforcement of any law against them, especially in the event that they engage in unrest or unlawful activity, is going to be not especially welcome with the activist class that he's trying to ingratiate himself to. But I do also have to say that there are elements in this administration that also welcome this kind of street theater.
Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us here on Sky News. US President Donald Trump has warned Iran that time is running out to agree a nuclear deal as a massive armada makes its way to the region. Iran has responded, suggesting it's open to talks with the US, but is also ready to defend itself should the US launch any strikes inside Iran. The scale of the government crackdown on dissent is becoming clearer, with reports of protesters being forcibly discharged from hospital and taken to prison. Our Sky's John Sparks now reports.
In Iran, the architecture of fear has been restored after the theocrats who run this country opened fire on their own people. But their determination to stay in power is matched by their efforts to conceal what has taken place. Access to the internet is restricted, but Sky News has obtained disturbing testimony from Iran. This is Dr. Yasser Ramanarad, a specialist in internal medicine. He works at a public hospital in Tehran.
In recent days, actions have taken place that have not been seen elsewhere in the world, even in world wars.
He told us what he saw when the regime launched its crackdown.
Pressure was put on nurses and doctors to clear out the emergency department. In other words, any
Africa News. The news.
Rwanda has filed an arbitration case against the United Kingdom, saying it's owed more than $130 million as part of a cancelled asylum scheme. In a submission to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, the East African nation says Britain has breached the terms of the migration partnership agreed in 2022. Under the controversial deal, London would pay Kigali to accept asylum seekers who arrived in Britain illegally. Introduced by the Conservative government, current Prime Minister Keir Starmer scrapped the plan when he took office in 2024. Kigali says it agreed to forego further payments if the treaty was terminated and new financial terms were agreed. But according to Rwanda's filing at the Court of Arbitration, those discussions never took place. Britain is also accused of reneging on a promise to resettle vulnerable refugees with complex needs already being hosted by Rwanda. Before being scrapped, the deal faced a number of legal challenges.
After weeks of deadly flooding in Mozambique, many left homeless and found refuge in makeshift camps, including a newborn named after Rosita Salvador, whose mother gave birth to her in a tree during flooding in 2000. This little girl was born on a school desk. The water started to rise and it began to flood. They took me to the hospital and there was a nurse there. I started to feel pain in my stomach. It was a Sunday. We slept in the flooded hospital, standing up until dawn. That's when they came to take us by boat to the school. At the school, there was also a lot of water, up to our shoulders. Salvador sadly died this month after a long illness at the age of 25. This latest flooding has claimed some 140 lives since the start of October, with around 100,000 people in temporary shelter. Initially, there were 705 people here. Then others were moved to the Shibobutuye Center. Now we have 529 people. Rescuers are continuing to search through thick mud and waterlogged homes in a race to find survivors still unaccounted for after one of the country's worst floods in decades. The waters ripped through critical infrastructure, roads, bridges, power lines, and water systems.
This
is Asia First.
Good Thursday morning. I'm Julie Yu. It's 9 a.m. in Cebu City in the Philippines, where Southeast Asia's top diplomats gather to stand up for the year ahead. The ASEAN Foreign Ministers Retreat opens this hour, where they're expected to address long-standing regional issues, including the war in Myanmar and clashes between Thailand and Cambodia. They're hoping to build on momentum from last year's landmark ASEAN summit. I'm Elizabeth Niu. Also this morning, Iran says it remains open to a new nuclear deal, but warns it is ready to respond to any attack after another threat from U.S. President Donald Trump. The U.S. leader said time is running out for the Islamic Republic to negotiate a deal for its nuclear program and avoid an American military strike. Sarah Hollywood Business News. Singapore's central bank has kept the monetary policy settings unchanged for the third straight quarter. The MAS said it will maintain the prevailing rate of appreciation of its Singapore dollar policy band. There are no changes to the width of the policy band and the level at which it is centered. That follows a rate hold from the U.S. Federal Reserve in the face of a stable economy and labor market, defying White House pressure to lower borrowing costs. Jerome Powell stressing his commitment to central bank independence as President Trump prepares to announce his successor as Fed chair. ASEAN foreign ministers have convened in Cebu for the bloc's first major ministerial meeting under the Philippines' chairmanship. The event opening this hour with remarks from the country's Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Maria Teresa Lazaro. The talks come at a time of growing uncertainty as the bloc grapples with long-standing regional issues alongside new global developments reshaping the landscape. CNA senior correspondent Leong Wai Kit tells us how the Philippines would have to balance diplomacy while guiding ASEAN on regional challenges.
Issues aplenty. Observers have pointed out that since COVID-19 started, ASEAN has been taking on mounting challenges. This year, Philippines as ASEAN chair is taking on problems from the Myanmar crisis, the Thai-Cambodia border violence, but in the larger region is also keeping a close watch on crises in the Middle East, in Ukraine. But analysts also say that the bloc's foreign ministers should not only be looking at the problems now, they should also be looking at the problems in the near future. And some of them include the rise of inequalities, because if governments do not tackle this well, people's quality of lives will not be uplifted. They're also keeping a close watch on transit.
Hello and welcome to Night Watch on France 24. I'm Charlotte Hughes and here are our top stories at this hour. Time is running out, says Donald Trump as he threatens Iran, urging the country to agree a deal over its nuclear program if it wants to avoid US military action. This as the EU looks poised to list Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. Iraq's former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki says he rejects US interference in his nation's internal affairs. This after Donald Trump threatened to sever support to the country if Maliki takes the position once again. And the combined war casualties in Russia's war on Ukraine could soon hit 2 million. This according to a harrowing new report from a think tank, coming less than a month before the 4th anniversary of Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We begin this bulletin with news on Iran. France is to support a move for the European.
This is DW News live from Berlin. A warning to Iran. US and Trump says and then if the US decides to strike
This is ABC News. Our top stories. Firefighters are working to control several major bushfires in Victoria. 3 of the fires are not yet contained, including the Carlisle River fire that's destroyed 16 buildings. Authorities are concerned the ongoing severe heat wave in the state's north will help the Walwa fire spread. An alleged attempted bombing during an Invasion Day rally in Perth is now being examined as a potential terrorist act. 31-year-old man is accused of throwing an explosive device into a crowd of thousands of people in the city centre. The incident is now being investigated by counter-terrorism authorities following criticism from organisers and public figures. US President Donald Trump is warning the Iranian regime that time is running out for it to make a deal on the fifth nuclear arms. Donald Trump says a strike by US forces will be far worse than its bombing of the country's nuclear enrichment facilities. Iran's mission to the United Nations says the country is prepared to negotiate, but promised it would defend itself if the US attacked. And Telstra is investigating a technical issue preventing some older Apple devices from connecting to its mobile network, including to 000. The issue is affecting the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, of this so far.
But Iran sends parallel messages. What happened to war? But the war or any attack you itself. Iran was and they already Diego's
and one our relation to
BC iView. Oh, hello. Hello and welcome to ABC News. We're going straight to Lake Cargelligo, where New South Wales police authorities are providing an update on the search for a suspected gunman.
Our office for the enormous dedication and commitment they've shown. What we're seeing at the moment is a search that is in the most extraordinary conditions. This is the 5th day of over 40-degree temperatures, yet our police have been unwavering. I'm incredibly proud of the work that they're doing and their commitment to this community. What we've seen at Lake Cargelligo is a terrible tragedy that should not occur. Domestic and family violence remains a scourge on our we have US, our community. My commitment to you as the Commissioner and as the New South Wales Police is that we will be here to keep you safe. I want to make sure that not only are you safe, but you feel safe. So you will continue to see a significant policing presence until such time as we put Mr Ingram before the court. I'll now hand over to Assistant Commissioner Holland, and then we're very happy to take questions.
Thank you, sir. Search for Julie Ingram continues in the districts around Lake Cargelligo and Mount Hope area. Currently, Tactical Operations Police are working with their real crime investigators to clear a number of properties. We're systematically going through the information provided by the public. Again, could I ask members of the public to have information to pass on? 000 in an emergency, 131 444 Crime Stoppers if they have just information to pass through. There is also further information where reports are that Mr. Ingrid has been seen. We have one confirmed reported sighting at Mount Hope. Other than that, all matters that have been reported to police are yet to be investigated and are yet to be confirmed. Happy to take questions.
So are you confident that was Mr. Ingram out at Mount Hope?
As I said, it's a reported sighting at this point, and as I said, we've spoken to the witnesses. From what they tell us at this point, we believe it may have been him, but again, it's yet to be confirmed officially, but we're in that area.
How many leads have you got so far and how confident are you in them?
The members of the public have been very forthcoming with their information, and again, every investigative use is being used to look at this information. One of the things we ask is that when the reports come through, give us a time and date or a GPS location. The properties in the area, as we said before, are the size of 40,000 acres, which is the size of the Sydney metropolitan area.
Hello and a very good morning to you. This is Sky News at 2 a.m. These are your latest headlines. Donald Trump tells Iran time is running out to agree a nuclear deal as he warns a massive armada is on its way to the region. Talking trade in Beijing, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is due to meet China's president later this morning. The peer responsible for steering the assisted dying bill through the Lords warns it may fail if the House continues to stall it. And history is made. The Church of England confirms its first ever female archbishop.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.